My daughter Emma whispered to her best friend to throw wine on the wedding dress I'd spent 8 months hand-sewing with vintage pearls. I walked straight over, took the dress, and said 3 words that made them both go completely white. The wedding was canceled within an hour, but that was just the beginning of what I had planned. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This story gets much wilder, and I want to see how far it reaches. Now let me tell you how we got here, because this betrayal was months in the making. My name is Susan Mitchell. I'm 58, and apparently I'm the kind of mother who raises a daughter capable of planning to destroy 8 months of my life's work for absolutely no reason I can understand. I was standing behind Emma's bedroom door that Tuesday afternoon, holding the freshly steamed wedding dress, ready to surprise her with the final fitting. That's when I heard her voice, crystal clear through the crack. "Just wait until she brings the dress tomorrow," Emma was saying to her maid of honor. "Jessica, when she's showing it off to everyone, throw your wine glass right at the bodice. We'll say it was an accident." My blood turned to ice water. "But Emma, your mom worked so hard on that dress," Jessica said uncertainly. 8 months of hand-beating and— "It's hideous," Emma cut her off. "Absolutely hideous, like something from a 1950s garage sale. But if I tell her I don't want it, she'll cry and make this whole guilt trip about Dad's memory." I pressed against the wall, the garment bag crinkling in my hands. "So you're going to let me destroy it?" Jessica asked. "It'll be perfect," Emma said with a smile in her voice. "Mom will be so upset about the accident that she won't have time to insist I wear it. I'll act devastated, say there's no time to clean it, and wear the designer dress I already bought." The designer dress she already bought. With whose money, I wondered. Certainly not hers, since she'd been unemployed for 6 months while finding herself. I stood there listening to them plan the destruction of something I'd poured my heart into. Every bead I'd sewn was placed with love, every stitch a prayer for her happiness. I'd worked evenings after my library shifts, staying up until my eyes burned. But this was different. This wasn't about money or convenience. This was about cruelty for its own sake. I walked back down the hallway quietly, hung the dress in my sewing room, and closed the door. Then I sat at my kitchen table and stared at my hands. The beading had taken me 3 months alone. Hundreds of tiny pearls and crystals, each hand sewn in a pattern I'd designed myself. The lace was vintage, from my mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved for 40 years. The silk was the exact shade Emma requested, special ordered from New York. It was, objectively, a beautiful dress. Not hideous, not old-fashioned, beautiful. But apparently, it wasn't good enough for my daughter. I made tea and called my sister Margaret in Phoenix. "Sue?" she answered on the second ring. "What's wrong? You sound strange." "I need to ask you something. Do you remember when Emma was 16 and wanted those expensive jeans? The ones that cost $200? Of course. You worked overtime for a month to buy them. And she wore them exactly once before deciding they made her look fat." Margaret was quiet. "Susan, what's going on?" "I think I've been enabling a monster," I said quietly, "and I'm about to stop." The next morning, I called the wedding venue. Emma's wedding was planned for Saturday, just 5 days away. "Mrs. Mitchell?" the coordinator said. "Is everything all right? We're so excited for Emma's big day. I need to make a change to the catering order. I'm paying the bill, so I assume I can do that?" "Of course. What did you need to adjust?" That's when I started planning my own surprise for Emma's special day. Let me back up 8 months to show you exactly what Emma put me through while I was creating what she called a hideous garage sale dress. It was March when Emma got engaged to Brad, a perfectly nice accountant who seemed to genuinely love her despite her flaws. The first thing she did after showing me her ring was ask if I would make her wedding dress. "I want something really special, Mom," she said, sitting at my kitchen table with bridal magazines spread everywhere. "Something that means something, you know? Like a family heirloom." I was thrilled. Making Emma's wedding dress felt like the perfect way to honor her father's memory and create something lasting for our family. "I'd love to," I told her. "What did you have in mind?" She pulled out a magazine clipping of a dress that made my heart sink. It was intricate beyond belief, with layers of silk, hundreds of beads, and delicate lacework that would require hand-stitching every detail. "Can you make something like this?" she asked. The dress in the photo probably cost $15,000 from the designer. I did some quick mental math on materials alone and realized I was looking at months of work and at least $1,000 in supplies. It's beautiful, I said carefully. But Emma, that's going to be incredibly time-consuming and expensive. But you'll do it, right? For your only daughter's wedding? There it was. The guilt trip Jessica had predicted Emma would use if I refused. Of course, I said, but I'll need you to be patient with the process. Something this complex can't be rushed. Whatever it takes, Emma said, hugging me. You're the best mom in the world. I spent the next 2 weeks researching techniques, ordering materials, and creating a pattern from scratch. The silk alone cost $400. The vintage lace I harvested from my mother's dress was irreplaceable. The beads and crystals cost another $300. By the time I was ready to start construction, I had over $800 invested and hadn't sewn a single stitch. The first fitting was in May. Emma tried on the basic shell, and I held my breath waiting for her reaction. It's nice, she said, looking at herself in my full-length mirror. Nice. After 6 weeks of work, nice was all I got. The beading will make all the difference, I said quickly. And once we add the lace overlay, I'm sure it'll be fine, Emma said, but her tone was flat, disinterested. I should have recognized the warning signs then. But I was so invested, both emotionally and financially, that I convinced myself she just needed to see the finished product. The beading began in June. 3 hours every evening after work, plus full days on weekends. My fingers developed permanent calluses from the needle. My back ached from hunching over the detailed work. But I kept going because I wanted it perfect. Emma came by every few weeks for fittings, each time seeming less enthusiastic than before. How much longer? She'd ask. Another month for the beading, I'd say. Then the lacework. God, really? That long? But she never said to stop. Never said she'd changed her mind. Just kept letting me pour my life into something she was already planning to destroy. In August, my friend Carol from the library saw the dress during one of Emma's fittings. Susan, that's absolutely stunning, she said. Emma, you're going to be the most beautiful bride. Emma smiled and said all the right things. But after Carol left, she was quiet. Something wrong? I asked. It's just very traditional, Emma said. I hope people don't think it's too old-fashioned. Classic never goes out of style, I said. Your grandmother would be so proud knowing her lace is part of your special day. Emma nodded, but I caught her rolling her eyes in the mirror when she thought I wasn't looking. That should have been my warning sign. The morning after I overheard Emma's plan, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Maybe not since David died, and I had to figure out how to rebuild my life without him. I made coffee, sat in my sewing room, and really looked at Emma's dress hanging there in all its completed glory. Carol had been right. It was stunning. The kind of dress that belonged in a museum, showcasing hand-sewing techniques that most people couldn't even identify anymore. I'd used French seaming throughout, which meant every seam was enclosed and finished by hand. The beadwork followed a pattern I'd designed myself, inspired by Art Nouveau flowers. The lace from my mother's dress had been carefully incorporated into the sleeves and neckline. This wasn't just a wedding dress, it was a masterpiece, and my daughter thought it was garage sale material. I picked up my phone and called Emma. Mom, is everything okay? It's like 7 in the morning. I wanted to catch you before work, about tomorrow's brunch with the bridal party. What about it? Tomorrow was supposed to be the final dress reveal. Emma had planned a brunch for her bridesmaids, her future mother-in-law, and a few close friends. I was supposed to bring the dress and present it like some grand finale. I was thinking maybe we should do the dress reveal somewhere more special. Your dress deserves a better setting than Jessica's apartment. Oh, Emma sounded surprised. I mean, Jessica already bought all the food and stuff. What if we moved it here instead? I could make my famous French toast, set up the good china, make it really memorable. There was a pause. I guess that would be okay. Should I tell everyone to come to your house instead? Perfect. 11 o'clock, just like we planned. After I hung up, I called Jessica directly. I'd found her number in Emma's phone the night before, while Emma was in the shower during her visit. Jessica, this is Susan, Emma's mom. Oh, hi, Mrs. Mitchell. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, honey. I just wanted to confirm you're still planning to wear that burgundy dress tomorrow. The one with the flowy sleeves? Yes. Emma said it would photograph well with the wedding dress. Perfect. And you're bringing your wine glass, the one Emma mentioned? For the toast? There was a long silence. I'm sorry? The wine glass. For when you throw it at my dress and pretend it's an accident. The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. Mrs. Mitchell, Don't worry, dear. I understand you were just following orders. But here's what's going to happen instead. I explained my new plan to Jessica, and by the time I finished, she was crying. I'm so sorry, she kept saying. I knew it was wrong. I told Emma it was wrong. You can make it right tomorrow, I said. Just do exactly what I told you. The rest of the day, I prepared. I cleaned my house until it sparkled. I set up my dining room with the good china and crystal glasses David and I had received for our wedding. I polished the silver serving pieces and arranged fresh flowers from my garden. Then I went to my sewing room and carefully folded Emma's dress into a garment bag. But not the garment bag Emma would be expecting. That evening, Emma called to confirm the time. Are you excited? She asked, and I could hear the fake enthusiasm in her voice. Oh, honey, you have no idea how excited I am to see everyone's reaction to your dress. Great, I can't wait either. Liar, I thought, but I just said, see you tomorrow, sweetheart. I spent that night alternating between fury and heartbreak. How had I raised a daughter who could plan something so deliberately cruel? But tomorrow, she was going to learn something new about her mother. I woke up early Saturday morning and made David's favorite breakfast casserole, the one I usually only made for holidays. I set the table with our wedding china and lit candles in the silver candelabras. By 10:30, everything was perfect. I'd even changed into the blue dress Emma had always said was her favorite on me. The first guests arrived at 11 sharp. Jessica came in looking pale and nervous, followed by Emma's cousin Sarah and 2 other bridesmaids. Emma's future mother-in-law, Patricia, arrived with a bottle of champagne for the toast. Emma was the last to arrive, with Brad trailing behind her carrying a camera to document the big moment. Mom, this looks amazing, Emma said, surveying my dining room. You really went all out. Well, I said, smoothing down my dress, it's not every day my daughter sees her wedding dress for the first time in its proper setting. Everyone gathered around the dining room table as I went to get the garment bag from my bedroom. Ladies, I announced, returning with the bag held high. I present Emma's wedding dress. I unzipped the bag with a flourish and pulled out the contents. Emma's face went through several emotions very quickly. Confusion first, then shock, then something close to panic. Because the dress I was holding wasn't her wedding dress at all. It was a hideous dress I'd bought at Goodwill that morning for $12. Stained polyester with fake pearls falling off, and a hem that had been clearly cut with scissors by someone who'd never heard of measuring. Mom, Emma said slowly, what is that? I smiled at her with all the warmth I could muster. It's your wedding dress, sweetheart, the one you called a garage sale special. The room went dead silent. I don't understand, Emma finally managed. Where's my real dress? Real dress? I tilted my head innocently. Honey, you said my work looked like something from a 1950s garage sale, so I thought, why waste 8 months of effort when I could get you exactly what you wanted for $12? Jessica had gone pale as moonlight. She knew exactly what was happening. Mom, this isn't funny, Emma said, her voice rising. Where's the dress you actually made? I made this one, I said, holding up the polyester disaster. Well, technically I bought it, but I did adjust the hem myself this morning. Not my best work, I'll admit. But then again, you said my sewing looked like garage sale quality anyway. Patricia, Brad's mother, cleared her throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should— No, please stay, I said pleasantly. Emma, would you like to try it on for everyone? I'm sure it'll fit well enough. The original was a size 16, but I took it in at the waist with some safety pins. Are you out of your mind? Emma snapped, her composure finally cracking completely. I can't wear that thing. It's disgusting. Oh, I see, I said thoughtfully. So this dress is too ugly for your wedding, but the one I spent 8 months hand sewing was also too ugly. Interesting. Brad stepped forward, clearly confused. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm not sure what's going on here, but— What's going on, Brad? I said, turning to him with a smile. Is that your fiancé asked me to make her wedding dress, then planned to have Jessica throw wine on it so she could claim it was ruined and wear something else instead. The gasps around the room were gratifying. Sarah actually dropped her mimosa. That's not true, Emma said. but her voice lacked conviction. I looked directly at Jessica. Jessica, would you like to tell everyone about the conversation you had with Emma yesterday? And that's when everything really started falling apart. Jessica started crying again. Emma, I told you it was awful. I told you not to do it. Shut up, Jessica, Emma hissed. No, Jessica said through her tears. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm so sorry. She told me to throw wine on the dress and pretend it was an accident. I was supposed to aim for the bodice where all the beadwork is. Emma whirled on her. You promised you wouldn't say anything. Because it was wrong, Jessica shot back. Do you know how many hours your mother spent on that dress? Do you know what it cost her? The room exploded into shocked murmurs. Patricia stood up abruptly. I think I should leave, she said. This is clearly a family matter. Actually, I said, I'd love for you to stay, Patricia. Since you're paying for half this wedding, you should probably know what kind of person your son is marrying. Patricia sat back down, looking fascinated despite herself. Emma was turning red now, angry tears starting to form. Mom, you're ruining everything. Everyone's going to think I'm a terrible person. Are you a terrible person? Emma? I asked quietly. No, the dress wasn't what I wanted, but I didn't know how to tell you without hurting your feelings. So instead you decided to have it destroyed and hurt my feelings anyway? It wasn't supposed to hurt your feelings. You would have thought it was an accident, but it would still be ruined. Emma, 8 months of work, gone. Your grandmother's lace, destroyed. How exactly would that hurt my feelings less than just telling me the truth? Emma opened and closed her mouth several times, clearly realizing how insane her logic sounded when said out loud. Where is the real dress? Brad asked quietly. The one you actually made? I smiled at him. I'd always liked Brad. It's safe, don't worry. It really is beautiful, despite what Emma thinks. Can I see it? He asked. Emma shot him a look. Brad, don't. I'd like to see what 8 months of work looks like, he said firmly. I nodded and went back to my sewing room. When I returned with the real dress, the reaction was everything I'd hoped for. Oh my God, Sarah breathed. Emma, this is incredible. Patricia actually stood up to examine the beadwork. This is museum quality, she said. Emma, how could you call this hideous? Emma stared at the dress like it was a snake. It's just not my style. What's not your style about it? I asked. The hand-sewn French seams? The vintage lace from your grandmother? The beadwork I designed specifically for you? It's too fancy, Emma said weakly. Too fancy for your wedding? Brad asked, his voice getting an edge to it. Emma, this is the most beautiful dress I've ever seen. You don't understand fashion, Emma snapped at him. Wrong thing to say. Brad's jaw tightened. I understand when someone puts love into their work, he said. And I understand when someone is being deliberately cruel for no reason. Oh, please, Emma said. It's just a dress. And that's when I knew I was done. Not just with the dress, not just with the wedding, but with enabling Emma's selfishness. You're right, I said calmly. It is just a dress. And this wedding is just one day. But character is forever, Emma. I folded the real dress carefully and put it back in its garment bag. I'll be keeping this, I said. Maybe someday you'll have a daughter who appreciates the work that goes into creating something beautiful. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The brunch ended with Emma storming out and Brad staying behind to apologize for her behavior. That was my first clue that maybe I wasn't the only one who'd been having second thoughts about Emma's character lately. Mrs. Mitchell, Brad said after everyone else had left, I had no idea about any of this. The dress is absolutely beautiful, and what Emma planned? I'm ashamed of her. I was loading dishes into the dishwasher, mostly to keep my hands busy while my emotions settled. Brad, honey, you don't need to apologize for Emma. She's a grown woman, responsible for her own choices. But she's going to be my wife in 6 days. The way he said it, like he was trying to convince himself it was still a good idea, made me pause in my dish loading. Can I ask you something? I said, turning to face him. Has Emma done things like this before? Planned to hurt someone, and then act like the victim when she got caught? Brad was quiet for a long moment, staring at his coffee cup. There was something with her last job, he said finally. She got fired, but she told everyone they laid her off. I found out later she'd been spreading rumors about her supervisor to try to get her position. I wasn't surprised, but it still stung to hear confirmation that my daughter was exactly who I thought she was becoming. And there was an incident with my sister, Brad continued. Emma told her that her boyfriend was cheating, but it turned out Emma had misunderstood a conversation she'd overheard. But instead of admitting the mistake, she doubled down and said Lisa was naive for believing him. What happened? Lisa and Mike broke up. They were together for 3 years, and they broke up over something that wasn't even true. They got back together eventually, but Lisa still doesn't trust Emma. I sat down across from him. Brad, why are you marrying her? The question hung in the air between us. I hadn't meant to ask it so bluntly, but there it was. I love her, he said, but he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. Love isn't enough, I said gently. Trust me, I learned that lesson the hard way. You can love someone and still recognize that they're not good for you. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe you should think carefully about whether this is the person you want to build a life with. Because this behavior, this selfishness and cruelty, it doesn't get better without consequences. And marriage isn't going to change her. Brad left that afternoon looking troubled, and I didn't hear from Emma for 2 days. When she finally called, she was crying. Mom, Brad wants to postpone the wedding. Part of me felt sorry for her. The way you feel sorry for a child who's finally experiencing consequences for their actions. But a larger part of me felt proud of Brad for recognizing what he was getting into. What exactly did he say? I asked. He said he needs time to think about whether we're compatible long term. He said what I did with the dress made him question my character. She was sobbing now. How could you do this to me? Emma, I didn't do anything to you. I simply stopped enabling you to hurt people without consequences. But now I might lose Brad. Yes, you might. And that's entirely your fault. I can't believe you're being so mean to me. Daddy would never have treated me like this. That hit me like a physical blow. Mostly because it was probably true. David had always been Emma's champion, always found excuses for her behavior. But David was gone, and I was tired of being the only parent willing to love Emma enough to tell her the truth. Your father isn't here, I said quietly. But if he were, and if he could see what you planned to do to that dress, I think he'd be just as disappointed as I am. Emma hung up on me. That night, I called the wedding venue and made one more change to Saturday's event. And this one was going to teach Emma that actions have consequences she never saw coming. Friday morning, exactly 24 hours before what should have been Emma's wedding, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. I let it go to voicemail while I made my coffee and read the morning paper like any normal person who wasn't about to destroy her daughter's entire world. The voicemail was from Emma, of course, sobbing, hysterical, barely coherent. Mom, they called me. The venue called me. They said you canceled the whole reception. Not just the catering, everything. The flowers, the band, the photographer. How could you do this to me? It's my wedding day tomorrow. I deleted the message and poured myself a second cup of coffee. Such drama. You'd think I'd canceled Christmas instead of a celebration for someone who planned to destroy 8 months of my work for fun. My phone rang again. This time, it was Patricia, Brad's mother. Susan? I just got off the phone with Emma. She's saying you've canceled the entire wedding reception? Good morning, Patricia. Yes, that's correct. I've withdrawn my financial support for the event. But we sent out invitations. People are traveling from out of state. The flowers alone cost $3,000, which Emma never offered to pay for, I said calmly. Patricia, let me ask you something. If you discovered your future daughter-in-law had planned to destroy something precious to you out of pure spite, would you celebrate her? There was a long pause. The dress thing? The dress thing. Among other things Brad shared with me yesterday. Another pause. What other things? I think you should ask your son about that. But Patricia, I want you to know this has nothing to do with you or your family. You're lovely people. This is about Emma's character. Susan, there are 60 people expecting a reception tomorrow night. Then Emma should have thought of that before she decided to be cruel to the person paying for it. After I hung up, I sat on my back porch and watched the birds at my feeder. Cardinals, blue jays, a few chickadees. They didn't scheme against each other. They didn't plan elaborate cruelties for entertainment. They just lived their lives with simple honesty. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. I'll pay you back every penny if you just fix this. I typed back. With what money, sweetheart? You've been unemployed for 6 months. Brad will help. Brad's too smart for that. He's seen who you really are now. I hate you. I love you. That's why I'm doing this. The irony wasn't lost on me. For the first time in Emma's life, I was showing her real love, the kind that sets boundaries, the kind that refuses to enable destructive behavior, the kind that says no when no needs to be said. David would have hated this. He would have begged me to reconsider, to think about Emma's happiness, to find a way to make peace. But David had been dead for 2 years, and his enabling of Emma's worst impulses had died with him. Around noon, Brad called. "Mrs. Mitchell, I wanted to thank you for ruining your wedding day, for showing me who I was about to marry before it was too late. I've been thinking about everything you said yesterday, and you're right. Emma's behavior isn't going to change just because we say vows. What are you going to do?" "I'm calling off the wedding, permanently this time, not just a postponement. I can't build a life with someone who would hurt people for no reason other than her own convenience." I felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride for Brad's wisdom, sadness for the pain this would cause everyone involved. "I'm sorry it came to this, Brad." "I'm not," he said. "Better to learn this now than after we have kids and a mortgage together." Smart boy. Emma had lost a good one, and she had only herself to blame. That evening, Emma showed up at my door. She looked terrible. Red eyes, blotchy face, hair that hadn't been washed in days. "Mom, please, I'm begging you. Fix this." "Come in," I said. "We need to talk." Emma collapsed onto my couch like her strings had been cut. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Everyone hates me," she said through fresh tears. "Jessica won't even return my calls. Sarah thinks I'm a monster. Brad won't speak to me. And now there's no wedding and no reception, and everyone will know it's my fault." "Is it your fault?" I asked, settling into my chair across from her. "You're the one who canceled everything." "Emma, answer the question. Is this situation your fault?" She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to figure out how to spin this into someone else's responsibility. But for once in her life, the evidence was too overwhelming. "I just didn't like the dress," she said weakly. "So you planned to have it destroyed instead of talking to me about it?" "I didn't want to hurt your feelings, but destroying it wouldn't hurt my feelings." Emma's face crumpled. "I wasn't thinking clearly. I was stressed about the wedding and I made a stupid mistake." "Mistake?" I leaned forward. "Emma, you didn't accidentally plan to destroy my dress. You didn't mistakenly coordinate with Jessica to throw wine on 8 months of my work. You deliberately plotted to hurt me. It wasn't about hurting you." "Then what was it about?" Emma was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "I wanted everyone to think I looked perfect, and your dress it was too much, too fancy. I was afraid people would think I was trying too hard. So you decided to wear a designer dress that cost 3 times as much instead? That's different." That dress looked effortless. I stared at my daughter, this woman I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for, and realized I was looking at a stranger. When had she become someone who valued appearance over substance? When had she learned to lie so easily to the people who loved her? "Emma, do you remember when you were 8 and you broke Mrs. Henderson's garden gnome with your bicycle?" She looked confused by the subject change. "I guess. Do you remember what you did?" I went and told her what happened, and I offered to pay for a new one with my allowance." "That's right. You took responsibility for your mistake and you made it right." "What happened to that little girl?" Emma started crying harder. "I don't know. I do. She learned that Mommy would always fix her problems. She learned that tears and manipulation worked better than honesty. She learned that other people's feelings didn't matter as much as her own convenience." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" "Emma, when was the last time you took responsibility for something without trying to blame someone else or make excuses?" She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. "I can't think of one either," I said quietly. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Finally, Emma spoke up. "So what happens now? Do I just not get married? Do I have to tell everyone that my own mother destroyed my wedding?" "Your mother didn't destroy anything, Emma. Your mother simply stopped enabling your behavior. There's a difference. Everyone's going to think I'm awful." "You are awful," I said gently, "but you don't have to stay that way." Emma looked up at me with something like hope in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean you can choose to learn from this. You can choose to become someone better, or you can choose to keep being the person who thinks other people exist to serve your needs. How do I become someone better? For the first time in our conversation, Emma sounded genuinely interested in the answer. You start by apologizing. Really apologizing, not the fake kind where you blame other people for making you do wrong things. You start by taking responsibility for your choices, and then you start making different choices. Will you help me? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw a glimmer of the little girl who used to confess to breaking garden gnomes. I'll help you, I said. But Emma, this is the last time I clean up your mess. From now on, you face the consequences of your actions alone. She nodded, and for the first time in years, it felt like we might actually understand each other. But I still wasn't done teaching her about consequences. Saturday morning dawned gray and drizzly, which seemed appropriate for what should have been Emma's wedding day. I was in my kitchen making pancakes when Emma called. Mom, I've been thinking about what you said last night. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. I want to apologize, really apologize. To Jessica first, and then to Brad's family, and then to everyone else. I was impressed despite myself. That sounds like a good start. Will you come with me? To Jessica's, I mean? I think I might need moral support. The old Susan would have jumped at the chance to help Emma smooth things over. But the new Susan had learned the difference between support and enabling. No, Emma, this is something you need to do yourself. But what if she won't even let me in? Then you'll have learned something about how your actions affect other people. There was a long pause. I'm scared. Good. You should be scared. Being scared means you're finally understanding that your choices have consequences. After Emma hung up, I spent the day doing normal Saturday things. I went grocery shopping, cleaned my house, worked in my garden. It felt strange to be living my regular life while 60 people discovered that the wedding they'd planned to attend no longer existed. Around 4 o'clock, Emma called back. I talked to Jessica, she said. Her voice was steady, which surprised me. How did it go? Terrible. She cried. I cried. She said she felt sick about the whole thing, that she knew it was wrong, but she didn't know how to say no to me. Did you apologize? I did. Really apologized. I told her it wasn't her fault, and that I was sorry for putting her in that position. I told her I was sorry for being the kind of person who would ask a friend to do something so mean. I felt a flutter of pride. How did she respond? She said she needs time to think about whether she wants to be friends with someone who would plan something like that. She said she doesn't know if she can trust me anymore. That must have been hard to hear. It was. But Mom, she was right. If one of my friends asked me to destroy something their mother had made, I would have said no immediately. The fact that I thought Jessica would do it says something terrible about what kind of friend I've been. This was more self-awareness than Emma had shown in years. What about Brad's family? I went to their house. Patricia was cold. She said she was disappointed in me and that she'd always thought I was better than this. Brad wasn't there, but his sister Lisa was. I remembered Brad mentioning Lisa, the one whose relationship Emma had nearly destroyed with lies. How did that go? She said she wasn't surprised. She said I'd shown my true colors before, and this just confirmed what she already knew about me. Ouch. Yeah. But Mom, the thing is, she's right too. I did lie about her boyfriend. I convinced myself I was protecting her, but really, I was just causing drama because I was bored. Emma was quiet for a moment. I think I might be a terrible person. You've done terrible things, I said carefully. But that doesn't mean you have to keep being terrible. I don't know how to be different. You start by telling the truth, even when it's hard, even when it makes you look bad, even when it's easier to lie. Is that what you've been doing? With the wedding cancellation and everything? Yes. For the first time in years, I'm telling you the truth about your behavior instead of making excuses for it. It hurts. Good. It should hurt. Pain is how we learn to make better choices. That evening, I was surprised by a knock on my door. It was Brad, holding a bouquet of flowers. Mrs. Mitchell, I wanted to thank you, and to give you these. I invited him in and put the flowers in water. How are you holding up? Better than I expected, actually. It turns out calling off a wedding is a lot easier when you realize you were about to marry the wrong person. Any regrets? None. Emma came by this afternoon to apologize, and honestly, it just reinforced that I made the right decision. How so? Even her apology was about her. How sorry she was that people were mad at her, how hard this was for her, how she didn't mean for things to turn out this way. She never once acknowledged that she'd hurt me, or my family, or you. I sighed. Emma still had a long way to go, but that was about to change. Sunday morning, I was drinking coffee and reading the paper when Emma's car pulled into my driveway. She got out slowly, like she was carrying a heavy weight. When I opened the door, she looked awful. Worse than Friday, even. Like she hadn't slept at all. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "Come in. You look terrible." "I feel terrible." She sat down heavily on my couch. "I've been thinking about everything that's happened, and I realized something horrible." I waited. "I planned to destroy your dress because I was jealous of it." This wasn't what I'd expected her to say. Jealous? Everyone who saw it said it was beautiful, museum quality, the most incredible thing they'd ever seen. And I realized I've never made anything beautiful in my entire life. Emma's voice was getting smaller. "You spent 8 months creating something perfect, something that would last forever, something that meant something. And all I've ever done is take things other people made and criticize them." "Emma." "No, let me finish. I looked at that dress and I saw everything I'm not. Patient, skilled, loving, generous. I saw someone who creates instead of destroys. And instead of being proud of my mother, I was angry that you were better than me." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I wanted to destroy it because I couldn't stand looking at proof of how selfish and useless I am." I felt something crack in my chest. Not sympathy for her self-pity, but recognition of genuine self-awareness. "What are you going to do about it?" "I don't know. I can't sew. I can't create anything beautiful. I don't even have a job. What am I good for?" "Emma, you're 28 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. But first, you have to stop feeling sorry for yourself and start taking action." "What kind of action?" "Well, for starters, you could get a job. Any job. Learn what it means to work for something instead of having it handed to you." She nodded slowly. "I've been applying places. It's humbling." "Good. Humbling builds character. And I want to pay you back. For the dress materials, for the wedding expenses, all of it. That would take years on an entry-level salary. Then it takes years. I need to make this right." We sat in silence for a while. Finally, Emma spoke again. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did Dad always take my side, even when I was wrong?" I'd been dreading this question for 2 years. "Your father loved you very much, but he was afraid that if he was too hard on you, you'd stop loving him back." "Did he know? That he was making me worse?" "I think so. We argued about it sometimes. But David grew up with parents who were very critical, and he wanted to be different." "He was different. He was wonderful. But you're right, isn't you? He did make me worse." I nodded. Enabling someone's bad behavior isn't love, Emma. It's fear. Your father was afraid of conflict, so he chose peace over your character. And you chose my character over peace." Finally, Emma stood up. "I should go. I have some more apologies to make." "Emma, wait." I went to my sewing room and came back with a small wrapped package. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a simple sewing kit. Needles, thread, scissors, a thimble. "I can't sew, Mom." "You can learn. It takes patience and practice and the willingness to start over when you make mistakes. Kind of like rebuilding your character." Emma held the kit like it was made of glass. "Will you teach me?" "If you want me to." "I do. I want to learn how to make something beautiful instead of destroying it." As she drove away, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope for my daughter. But I still had one more surprise for her. 3 months later, Emma had been working at a coffee shop for 6 weeks, had apologized to everyone she'd wronged, and was slowly learning to sew under my careful instruction. She was terrible at it, but she kept trying, which was more than she'd ever done before. That's when I decided it was time for the final revelation. "Emma, I have something to tell you," I said one evening as she struggled with a basic straight seam. "If it's that I'm hopeless at this, I already know." "No, it's about your wedding dress, the real one." She looked up from her stitching. "What about it?" "I never actually made it for you." Emma stared at me. "What do you mean?" "I mean the dress you saw that day, the one everyone said was beautiful. That wasn't your wedding dress." "I don't understand." I got up and went to my bedroom closet, When I came back, I was carrying a different garment bag. This is your wedding dress. I unzipped the bag and pulled out a dress that was adequate. Pretty, well-made, but simple. Nothing like the masterpiece everyone had admired. The dress I showed at the brunch was one I made 20 years ago for a client who never picked it up. I kept it in storage all this time. Emma's mouth fell open. I mean I spent 8 months making you a perfectly nice wedding dress. Not a museum piece, not a work of art. Just a good, solid, beautiful dress appropriate for a wedding. But why did you switch them? Because I wanted to see what you'd do when faced with true beauty. I wanted to see if you'd appreciate something extraordinary or try to destroy it. Emma was quiet for a long time, staring at the actual dress I'd made for her. It's beautiful, she said finally. It's really beautiful, Mom. It is, and I made it with love, just like I told you. But Emma, it's not the dress that matters. It's what you chose to do when you thought you were faced with something perfect. I chose to destroy it. Yes, and that told me everything I needed to know about who you'd become. Emma set down her sewing and looked at me. Are you ever going to forgive me? I already have. The question is whether you're going to forgive yourself and do better. I'm trying. I know you are, and that's why I'm going to tell you one more thing. What? Brad called me yesterday. Emma went very still. What did he say? He's been watching you these past few months. Watching you work, watching you learn, watching you take responsibility for your mistakes. He's impressed by the changes you've made. Does he want to talk? He might. But Emma, you need to understand something. Even if Brad forgives you, even if you get back together, you're not the same person you were 3 months ago. And any relationship you have going forward has to be based on who you are now, not who you were. Emma nodded. I understand. And honestly, I don't think I want to be with someone who would marry the person I was before. That person was awful. I smiled at my daughter, this woman who was finally learning to see herself clearly. So what now? She asked. Now you keep practicing. Sewing, honesty, taking responsibility, making amends. You keep building the person you want to be instead of tearing down the world around you. Emma picked up her sewing again. Mom? Yes? Thank you for not giving up on me, for loving me enough to let me fail. That's what real love looks like. Sweetheart, it's not always pretty, but it's always worth it. As I watched Emma work on her crooked stitches, I thought about the wedding dress hanging in my closet. Maybe someday she'd wear it, maybe not. But either way, she'd earned the right to choose, and that made all the difference. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.